In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most gracious, all the praises and thanks be to Allah, the Lord, or the Word, and peace be upon the Prophet and his companions. Peace be upon you, brothers and sisters, and welcome to a new episode of our show, Recite With Us, a show designed to read and recite the Quran easily, correctly, and confidently. Today, we will learn how to distinguish and know the Nun Sakina, the rules of Nun Sakina and Tanween. So we will start to explain the rules of Nun Sakina and Tanween. But before we start to explain the rules, we exactly need to know what is the difference between Nun Sakina and Tanween. How can I distinguish between the Nun Sakina and Tanween? And what do I mean by Nun Sakina? And what do I mean by Tanween? So let us have a look at this page. So what we see here, that there are many shapes of the letter Nun. So it is the letter Nun, and this is the letter Nun, and you can see there are many short vowels above the letter Nun. What is the difference between these shapes of the letter Nun? And what is the difference between the movement or the vowel vowel with Nun and the consonant Nun, or what is the difference between movement Nun and consonant Nun? Okay, let's have a look and focus with me. Here you can see the letter Nun, and there is a short vowel of Fatha above it. So it is a movement Nun. Okay, how can you pronounce this letter with this short vowel above it? Okay, if you added the letter Hamza before the letter Nun here with this short vowel of Fatha, how can you pronounce this letter? You can pronounce this letter, so you can see ana, na. So this movement Nun, and here you can see the letter Nun with a stress and a short vowel of Fatha. How can you pronounce the letter Nun? You pronounce it like anna. And also, what can you see here? You can see the letter Nun with a short vowel of Dhamma. So how can you pronounce this letter, or how should you pronounce this letter? If you added the same letter of Hamza here before the letter Nun, you pronounce this or it like anu. And you can see here the letter Nun with stress and short vowel of Dhamma. So you can pronounce it like Annu. And here you can see the letter Nun, and there is a short vowel of Kasra under it. How can you pronounce this letter of Nun? You can pronounce it like Ani. And here you can see the stress above the letter Nun, and you can see the short vowel of Kasra under the letter Nun. Notice that you sometimes find in the Holy Quran that this letter of Nun has the stress and the short vowel of Kasra directly under the stress. So let us move to the program paint here. So sometimes you can see the letter Nun. So here I want to write the letter Nun here. Okay, I will select the font. You can see the letter Nun here like this, and there is a stress above the letter Nun, and there is a short vowel of Kasra under it and not under the letter Nun here. So you may see this shape, the stress and the short vowel of Kasra together above the letter noon, and you sometimes see the letter noon and you can see the stress above it and the short vowel of kasra under it. You can see either this shape or this shape. It is the same pronunciation. Okay, let's be back at the Word document. Okay, so here we have the letter noon naked from any haraka or movement. You cannot see a short vowel of fatha or dhamma or kasra. And here you can see the letter noon and there is a sign above it. This sign is a sukoon. If you added the noon, or the letter hamza before it here, like this, how should you pronounce this letter of noon? You should pronounce it like an, either this letter or either this letter. It is the same pronunciation. Sometimes you can find the sign of sukoon above the letter noon in a different shape. So let me write it here. So sometimes you can see the letter noon here and the sign of sukoon like this, a circle above the letter noon. If you added, for example, the letter hamza before it with a short vowel above it, you can pronounce it like an. And you can sometimes find, for example, if you see this letter hamza and has a short vowel of fatha, and there is the letter noon beside it or next to it, and you can see this sign of sukoon in a different shape, like this. The first part of the head of the letter ha, like this. It is also a sign of sukoon or the sign of sukoon. So it is the same pronunciation, an and an. It is all correct. Okay, let's be back. So what we have noticed here, this group of the letter noon, these six shapes of the letter noon, all called movement noon. I mean noon with haraka or movement. And this letter of noon has no vowels or short vowels of fatha or dhamma or kasra, and it is also called noon sakina or consonant noon. So we will talk about the rules of noon sakina and tanween. So we will not talk about this letter or this letter or this letter or this letter also. We will not talk about this letter or this letter, but just we will talk about this letter and this letter because it is a consonant noon and not a movement noon. So we will explain the rules of noon sakina and tanween. We will apply the rule on this letter or this shape. We have talked about the consonant noon. So what is tanween? Tanween, it is an extra noon attached at the end of the word or the letter, and it is permissible to pronounce it in pronunciation, and it is prohibited to write it. So this is called a tanween because it is a double fatha, and this called also tanween because it is a double dhamma, and this is also tanween because this letter has a double kasra. Okay, so the tanween is an extra noon attaches and at the end of the letter or the word, and you can pronounce it and you cannot write it. So this pronunciation of the double fatha like this, equal this, man. Okay, like this pronunciation. And this letter with double dhamma above it, the same pronunciation like this word also. But let me put here the sign of dhamma or the short vowel of fatha. So this is called or pronounced man, the same pronunciation of this word. And this letter pronounced as mun, like the pronunciation of this letter. Let me put the short vowel of dhamma here, mun. And the pronunciation of this letter, mim, min, the same pronunciation like this word, min. Okay? So this is called Tanween. So when we start to explain the rules of Nun Sakina and Tanween, I just mean this letter or this letter or this Tanween, double fatha or double dhamma or double kasra. Now, from the next episode, we will start to explain the rules of Nun Sakina and Tanween. So hit the bell below, like, share and subscribe, and let the others learn something useful and helpful.